Shabbat shalom, everybody. It's Rabbi Stephen here, Rob Shmuel Ben Yehoshua. Yes, Rashbi is still in the house and kind of like confined to the house with this coronavirus going on. And, we joke a little bit about it, but, this is real serious. Any illness, we always have to take care of ourselves. We want to make sure that we contain it. And that's why one of the ways we're helping the cause, if you will, is we live streamed last Friday night service. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Hope you enjoy it. I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to probably, and stay tuned, maybe do this next Saturday, do a Saturday morning service, live stream that. But for sure, 2 weeks from this past Friday, it'll be the 27th. We're going to live stream again. We will live stream a full Friday night service the way we did before. And again, thinking of interspersing some Saturday mornings in there too. Quite frankly, for me, I do it anyway. So why not just turn on, the Facebook Live and go ahead and do it. Now, some of you are not on Facebook, so I'm looking for ways to do another stream that's going to be a little easier. I don't know if I can do it from my Wix website. I think there's some extra steps. I'm playing with that this morning. Didn't quite get the hang of it, but I think I can go live on YouTube. And it's just a matter of clicking the link, going to YouTube, looking up Modern Rabbi Stephen, Modern Rabbi Shmuel, and there I am. And in fact, if you go to my website, there's a link on the upper right-hand corner to my YouTube channel, so you can see it. But we'll try it and work the bugs out again and see how it goes. Again, we want to help with the containment efforts so that this pandemic that we have, the coronavirus, doesn't spread. But we also want to do Judaism. Let's face it. We this isn't going to stop us. We Jews, for the last 1,800 years, we've been oppressed. We've had the king's men looking for us, threatening under penalty of death, not to be reading Torah, not to be saying the Shema, not to be observing the moon. But we've done it. We've gone ahead and did it, and that's how we've survived. So we're going to, there's an old saying, this too shall pass, and it will. So, having said that, let's talk a little bit about this week's Torah portion, which is actually two portions, and it brings to close the book of Exodus. So we have Vayekhal and Pekudai. And we do have the two portions. So let's talk a little bit about that. Why do we have two portions? Well, as we may know, for every 19-year period, 7 of those years are marked to be a leap year. And in Hebrew calendar, to make a leap year, we add the extra month of Adar. So we have 2 Adars, Adar 1, Adar 2. Pop quiz. Since Purim comes on the 15th of Adar and we have 2 Adars, which Adar do we do Purim? Some people are tempted to say, well, the first Adar, but actually it's the second whenever there's a leap year, because by halacha, Purim is always 30 days or so, a month before the beginning of Purim. So in order to do that, we move Purim to the second Adar. We have it on the 15th of the second Adar. So, excuse me, it's not coronavirus, just clearing my throat. So when we have the extra month, we have 4 extra Shabbatot for which we read a portion. And at that point, we have a certain amount of portions. We have, I think, about 50 or so, and we can spread them out. We can do the individual portions. When we don't have the extra month, we have 4 less Shabbatot. So we have to double up on specific portions. And there are specific portions that are earmarked. This is the first one, putting Vayekhal with Pekudai, excuse me, to finish out the book of Exodus. And those portions are put together because it's similar themes. They continue, and the rabbis figure, 1, 2, it's pretty much the same theme, so it kind of follows. There are other factors that also contribute to whether we double up on specific portions. We may have a leap year with the extra month, and yet we're still doubling up on a portion or two. Why would we do that? Well, we have the 3 pilgrimage festivals, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. And during Passover and Sukkot, we have an 8-day festival, and there's always at least one Shabbat which it encompasses. And during that Shabbat, for those particular holidays, Pesach and Sukkot, we read a special Torah portion because of the holiday. Now, what if this 8-day holiday, what if it starts on Shabbat? Then we have a special Torah reading for the first day, which is the first Shabbat. But then we would also have a special reading for the second Shabbat. So that's another Shabbat that we have to, that's we don't have a regular portion, the regular flow. So that's another reason why we may have to double up. Now, do we have times when we have 2 Shabbats for Pesach or Sukkot during a non-leap year? Sure, and we have to double up some extra ones. Is there ever a point where both of them start, both Passover and Sukkot start on Shabbat? I don't know, quite frankly. That's a good question. I thought I'd bring it up, but I really don't know. So, but again, these are things that would contribute, so we do a double portion. So the reason that these 2 portions are one of the portions that's put together is because it's the similar theme. So we have earlier in Exodus, God is telling Moses, okay, I want you to put together a Mishkan. People need a physical place to pray, because we're physical beings. We need that. We're not praying to a physical entity because, as we know, God is Ein Sof. God is beyond our comprehension. God has no body. In fact, one of the lines in Yigdal, which is a closing prayer that in my background, we used to do that when there was a festival. Shabbat, we do it on Olam. When there's a festival, we do Yigdal. Now, whether that's a minchag, which is a tradition, or a halakha, I don't know. So in Yigdal, one of it is God has no form, so God is completely spiritual. But God knows that as physical beings, we want to go someplace and worship God. Now, the Mishkan was supposed to be the temple. It was supposed to be the forerunner of the temple. So after the temples were destroyed, of course, we don't do any, sacrifices. We don't do an altar. God told us not to do that. You start having private altars, you start playing around with the religion. Next thing you know, you've gone away from what Judaism is. So we want to make sure that we contain that. So we do have the synagogues, for example. So God gives us instructions to build, what the dimensions are going to be, talks about the hooks, the curtains, the way the boards are going to be clasped together, also the things that go into it, the menorah, the candelabra, the table for the bread, the showcase for the bread, also the altar, the basin for the washing, also for the incense. Then we talk about the making the clothes for the priests and their anointment. So that was earlier. Now, in the last 2 portions, okay, we have it being done. We have it talking about how, first of all, Moses said, anybody whose heart moves them, bring materials so we can melt it down and whatever, and create these things for the Mishkan. And people were just so overjoyed to do this, they had more than they needed. Moses had to say, wait a minute, stop. We've got enough. We're good to go. Thank you. They also talk about getting Bezalel and Aholiab, who were the master contractors that would start the construction, start the weaving. It talks about how the woman would come and they would start weaving. We talk about the men volunteering their service, men who were able, who had, didn't have 2 thumbs or 2 left hands, or whatever it was, that could actually do the building. They came and their hearts were into it. So it's really interesting when we look at the flow of Exodus. We have Moses taking the children of Israel out of Egypt. We have the miracles where the Egyptians were stopped so the Red Sea could open and the people could walk through. The Israelites could walk through and be free, and it had closing up on the Egyptians. We then had Moses going up for the 10 Commandments and bringing that down for the people, and some other commandments about slaves, about the widow and the orphan, about not talking, not gossiping. We had the anointing of the priests. And all of a sudden, in the midst of all this, we get the golden calf. People just, after they said, we will do and we will hear, they committed to doing it. All of a sudden, that kind of went right out the window. And now, and of course, those people were punished. They were dealt with very hastily. And we're back to developing this thing called Judaism. We're developing the space, the physical space in which we're going to observe. And within that, there's a little bit of talk about the holidays, how the flow of the year is going to be. In the 7th month, we have Rosh Hashanah. 10 days later, we get, the Day of Atonement. Then we've got Passover. That's like one of the first holidays. Moses is talking about the new moon, which is very important. The new moon starts a month. And the moon is very important. Winter holidays. Some of our holidays are on the 15th of the month. How do we know it's the 15th? Because of the full moon. Okay, so it's so important that there's like 4 portions devoted to this. Usually in the Torah, it's very sparing. Look at Abraham. When do we encounter Abraham? When he's 70 years old. Same thing with Moses. He's a kid. He has to leave Egypt because he kills the taskmaster, and he's out being a shepherd for maybe 60 years, and at the age of 80 he comes back. So, it's very sparing. But in here, it's not, because it's so important. The idea of having a home, having a physical place to worship God is so important. They emphasize it. So, thank you very much for listening. Our time is just about up. Again, please stay tuned for the notifications. We're going to live stream services. We're going to keep this Judaism going in face of the pandemic, because that's who we are. Being a stiff-necked people, it can work both ways. We can be stubborn, but you know what? We can also be persevering. So Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for getting involved in tuning in.